Thank you very much for your patience. A very good morning to you, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today for the third StarLIVE session. I am Kimberly from The Star, and we are really excited to see an awesome turnout today. Before we kickstart our event, let me briefly introduce what StarLIVE is all about. StarLIVE is a monthly talk session organized by The Star, covering various topical matters of interest. Topics range from personal financing to meet and greet session with personalities. In the last session, we invited two guest speakers from one of the country's leading tax consultancies to share some practical tips on how to make tax less taxing. This month, StarLIVE takes on a totally different topic. With two TEDx speakers in the house, we will be hearing about how they harness their individual creativity to get them to where they are today. Our first speaker of the day is funny man Kavin J. Kavin is no stranger to the country's comedy scene and has been actively bringing laughter to the masses since his first debut in 2006. Aside from his job at Red FM as an announcer for the really late breakfast show, the rapid-fire grumpy joke-telling machine is also a regular host and performer for the Time Out KL Comedy Thursday. His 8 years as a comedian landed him gigs in Comedy Club KL, Comedy Club Singapore, Comedy Masala, and in Karma Comedians. As a founding member of Malaysia's only open mic night, the One Mic Stand, Kavin is passionate about developing newbies in the industry and hopes to run his own comedy club one day. Second speaker, Quah, expresses her creativity through art and a unique business venture. Not many people get to fly around the world doing doodles for a living, but Bernie does. As a graphic recorder in her own company, Sketch Post Studio, Bernie transforms words and simplifies complex ideas into engaging hand-drawn visuals. Her work includes illustrations of talks by PM Datuk Sri Najib Razak, DPM Tan Sri Datuk Muhyiddin Yassin, US Secretary of State John Kerry, and activist Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir. Never heard of graphic recording? No worries. Bernie will be working her magic and capturing Kavin sharing on her doodle board in real time. And there she is with her doodle board already. Lastly, we will round up the session with a Q&A moderated by our very own youth section editor, Ian Yee from Rage. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Kavin on his encounter with the creative spark and how it has changed his life. A big round of applause for Kavin.
Okay. Hi guys, how are you guys doing? Great, okay, 3 people actually care. Thank you very much. But how are you guys doing, really? I know it's Saturday morning, I know it's early. I usually don't get up this early as well, but, well, let's power through this. Don't worry, I won't take a lot of your time. Today is about creativity and what creativity is. Now, it's very subjective what creativity is, right? And, there's a lot of things that you could say about creativity. But one thing about comedy that is different is that comedy is the purest form of art that you can distinguish. Because one thing about comedy is that it's very personal, because I tell you life stories about myself. I tell you embarrassing stories about myself. And basically hoping to get a laugh from you guys, which is hard. Because a lot of people, this is one quote that I keep very close to heart, which is, it's easier to make someone cry than it is to make someone laugh, right? And the thing is, why? The whole point of me coming here is telling you why I do comedy, right? And as you can see, hopefully most of y'all are not colorblind. I am Indian. And growing up with Indian parents, typical Indian parents, they only gave me 5 career choices in my life, all right? Which is doctor, lawyer, engineer, gangster, or lorry driver, either one. Because if I don't achieve the first three, the next two is what I'm going to do. And to be fair, I was actually a good student at school. I got straight A's. I did everything. I got a scholarship from Petronas. I went to UK to study for 4 years, and that's where actually my journey to comedy started, right? But I didn't do comedy in the UK because it's very difficult. But what I did was I attended a lot of comedy shows, which I couldn't do in Malaysia because there was no such thing. And I went there and I met a lot of comedians and I asked them, what it's like to be a comedian. And I watched them on stage and I thought to myself, I also can do it. Look easy only. So, and after 4 years when I came back and I always thought to myself, I should do this. I should do this as a career. I wanted to do it. But then I always thought, tomorrow can lah, tomorrow can. Which is hard because if I started a lot younger, I would be, achieving a lot more than I would be now. I'm already 34 years old, by the way. Thank you for the applause. Don't need to get up. But if I started younger, it would have been easier. But I decided to, just go, just tomorrow can. And something happened in my life, which I realized. Life was too short, right? And I realized one thing though. When I first started comedy, the first show I ever did was in 2006, and I got 150 of my friends, and I put them in a pub, and I told them jokes, and I was really, really bad. In fact, all my friends came up to me afterwards, and they shook my hand and said, "Good show," but in their eyes, I know they're lying, right? And when that happened, what happened? I really thought to myself, hold on. I need to know how to do this before I do something. I really need to go through the journey of difficulty, of hardship before I can be good at something. And I realized one thing. I had to go through that journey and learn how to do stand-up comedy before I do stand-up comedy. So the next 2 years, what I did was I learned stand-up comedy. And I realized one thing. Trying to be someone else was the worst thing that I could do. Because I tried to be other comedians. I tried to be the comedians that I saw in UK. I tried to be the comedians that I see on YouTube. I tried to be that, but it's wrong. Because I needed to be myself. I needed to be who I am, right? And I realized that being myself and talking about stories about my life was the one that made it funny. Because I look back in my life. And I see things like, I grew up in a multicultural society. I grew up in Cheras. Where there's no Indian people there. In fact, now there's 1 or 2 Indian people in Cheras, but, back in the 80s, I was the only one. Even my parents pretended to be Chinese, you know what I'm saying? It's hard because, small things like, playing with my friends, it's difficult. Did you guys used to play the game Police and Thieves when you were young? I hated that game. Because every time we played the game, all my friends would get around and say, "We are the police. And you are the thief." I'm like, why? Because you're Indian, right? And did you guys used to play the game Masak-Masak when you were a kid? Yeah, I hated the game too. Because every time we played the game, I had to wash the dishes. I'm like, why? Because you're Bangla, what? It's hard. It's, things like that. I can tell you these stories. It's true, by the way. This is actually true. And I remember my friends used to make fun of me all the time, like when I was a kid, right? They used to come up to me like, "Hey, Kavin, inge poringe. Kavin, appu nene." I don't know what they were saying. I didn't know how to respond. I don't know what to say to them. I can't go up to them and say, "Achong, sao kau pauchi." It's just not the same, you know what I'm saying? And growing up, I realized there were so many stories. In fact, every one of you, if you look back in your life, there's one story that will always make you laugh. And in fact, if you find that one story, you'll find a second story, you'll find a third story. And these are what make people laugh, And the creative part of it all is to tell you in a way that will make you laugh. And, you've always heard of stories that people tell you, and they are funny, and you think to yourself, wow, I can use that. I can use that being a stand-up comedian. But don't get me wrong. although it's the easiest and the most pure form of art, stand-up comedy, it's the hardest form of art as well, in the same time. Because, look, it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of, motivation to do this as a career. Because let's face it, how many of your friends, how many, how many of you know people who actually make a good money doing this as a career? Raise your hands. You know me, that's different. But they're probably none. They're probably none. When you were a kid, have you ever thought to yourself, hey, maybe I can do stand-up comedy as a career? Nobody ever thinks that. Everybody, doctor, lawyer, engineer, lorry driver, or gangster, I don't want. But, and I thought to myself, hold on, this is, why I became a stand-up comedian is because I have this spark. I have this creative spark that I thought to myself, hold on, if I can do this, it makes me happy. Instead of working 9 to 5 in a job that, doesn't really make me happy. But if doing a job 9 to 5 is what makes you happy, go for it. But, I realized very early in life that I cannot work for someone because I'm quite lazy, actually. And, I'll get into trouble. But here's what I'm trying to say. It's that you have to be bold and you have to capture the moment. The moments are there. The moments are there all the time. But you must learn to identify those moments and capture those moments as they come along. Because if it wasn't for those moments, life will never be the same. Because if that moment passes you by, that's it, you go a different road. But that moment will come back again. Not many people realize this, but that moment will come back again. And creativity is not about just stand-up comedy, not just about art. It's about so many things. You can be creative in engineering. You can be creative in architecture. You can be creative in, being a gangster. I guess. But the thing is, harness that creativity. Harness that thing inside you. Everybody has it. Everybody can, harness something like that. And it's hard for me to point out, that, it's kind of, for me here now, it's kind of becoming a career talk, like, oh, why you should do stand-up comedy. To be honest, you shouldn't, because it doesn't pay very well. You see, I'm doing this for free also. But but it's not about, it's not about the money. It's not about the how much money you can make, how much when you can retire. No, it's not about that. Whenever you do something for the love and the passion of doing it, I can tell you one thing, you will live comfortably in your life. You may not be the richest person in the world, but you can live quite comfortably because you're doing what you love. It is no longer a job anymore because you go to work. Well, I work 20 minutes a night or an hour a night. And, I make enough to support a family of 3. So, I do all right. But it's because that I don't go to work. I get up in the morning and I feel good because I don't have to go to work. I just have to go and do something that I really like for 1 hour, get paid, and come back. And the gratification is not about the money. It's all about, the laughter that I bring to people and the energy that I give to people. Because a lot of people don't realize that doing stand-up comedy drains you of energy. Because this is what I give. I give energy to people, and then I don't take anything back. So when I get off stage, I'm really tired. I given out all my energy to you guys. Not you guys. You guys are all right. But I've given out all my energy to the audience, and I don't take anything back. And then I go, and then after that, people come up to me and say, hey, good job, and stuff like that. And I can tell you one thing, though. A lot of comedians, when you see them on stage, they do a good job. And then, the audience come up to them afterwards. The audience come up to them afterwards and they say, good job, good job, good job. And the thing is, as comedians, we have to be humble and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you, thank you. But honestly, in our head, we're like, yeah! That was a good show. You go and do and see? which is a lot of fun, right? But the thing is, the reason why I do what I do is because I captured the moment. I captured this moment. And I realized one thing. My parents would never understand what I do. They would never understand what I do. Because until today, I've been doing comedy for 8 years. They still think I'm an engineer. Honestly, because even this came out in newspaper, they're like, giving talk about engineering. I kid you not, this actually happened. And my parents have never been to my show. Not because they don't want to, because I don't want them there, because I make fun of them a lot. I use stories about my parents all the time. Like, my mom added me on Facebook. It's hard to find out you've been poked by your mother. I remember the first time my mother poked me, my father liked it. Very difficult. But, the things like that, I don't want them to hear, what I'm saying. But the thing is, I know that I hope one day I have enough guts to bring my parents to a show, sit them down and watch the show, and hopefully they don't kill me afterwards. That, they can be proud of me. I hope one day. But they're very old-fashioned. All right? My dad is the kind of guy who's very strict. When I was young, he was very strict. He made sure that, I did what he wanted me to do. Like, because he had 2 sons, and I remember he sat us both down and said, the reason I had 2 sons is because one day I know I'm going to kill one of you. I miss my brother. He's very naughty. But no, I mean, what sparked this whole thing? I wanted to tell you that joke before I tell you this story. Was, my brother actually passed away 8 years ago. Exactly 8 years ago. A week ago. And what happened was, he was the one who was always pushed me towards, the creative side. He's always the one who taught me how to be funny. Because he was my first person I ever saw, right? He was the first guy who told me jokes, stupid jokes, like, what do you call an Indian pirate? Arumugam. But, jokes like that. He taught me how to be funny. And I remember when he always pushed me. He was like, you should do this on stage. You should do this on stage. And he was always the business guy, right? I was always the guy who would, like, party all the time and stuff like that. I just spent his money. But what happened was, when he passed away, I realized life is too short. Life is too short, and I need to capture the moment. And I did that. I created my own moment. All right? Sometimes you don't even have to wait for that moment, because you have to create your own moments. And as I said, I got 150 of my friends, told them jokes. I was really, really bad, and I realized I needed to learn. And that was the first step towards what I am now. The first 2 years of doing really bad shows, of learning how to do stand-up comedy, being friends with other comedians who were coming up at that time, like Quah, like Edu Neto, like Papi Zach. And, we taught each other so many things. And at the end of the day, when we come back together now, I think, most of them have become, names of their own, like Papi Zach, like Quah, he's huge. And, at the end of the day, we come back now, we sit together and we realize, and we reminisce on the times that we had, those dingy, really, really dingy clubs that we performed in, we performing for no money, performing for coffee, stuff like that. And we realized that, those were the things that gave us our character today. Because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be who we are today, and we wouldn't be the personality that you see, because that made us shine. Like, the hardships actually made us stronger, made us harder, and made us who we are today. So, if anything I would like you to take away from today is the fact that, one, you have to seize the moment. Second, the fact that, moments do come and go, but sometimes you can make your own moments. Because if you can make your own moments, you don't even have to wait for your moment, because that will happen as you want it. And third of all, the fact that, look, if you want to do something and you want to be great at something, you have to go through that period of time where you have to struggle. You have to struggle. There's no such thing as instant success. There are some instant successes, like Dr. Jason Leong, who came on stage, killed it first time, and now is a superstar. But that doesn't happen to everyone. And I can tell you this, that even as much of an instant superstar that Dr. Jason Leong is, he had to go through the hardships to become who he is today. Because that hardship is what creates you, and what hardens you, and what makes you who you are. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.